All right. Well, let's talk about science, chemistry, and physics. Or physique. Physique. So, what else does the Navy know? Well, a new international version, the Navy Bible. What's that? Well, the Navy's not important. Okay, Navy's not important. Okay, don't worry about it. But if you think the Navy is important, well, I'm just give you a little history lesson. How about some chemistry? Well, you got salt water and you got fresh water. Now, salt water, you notice you ever boil water on the stove, you'll put a little salt in it and it heats up and it boils faster, right? Well, it's because of fissure. See? Salt is an accelerant, just like baking soda is. Now, you might have watched this stupid little show on TV talk about Mythbusters, right? And they say, you can't run stuff on water, and hydrogen. It don't work that way. And they put a big tank of water there. They put a big tank of water on there, and they say, that don't work. Well, it's because a bunch of morons never went to science class and learned anything about chemistry and physics. So we used to do stuff with potatoes. We put potatoes in the water, a little baking soda, and we could power a light bulb with it. So let's tell you about a little bit of physics and chemistry. So with the baking soda or the salt in the water with an electrical charge, then the gases separate. The problem is the safety. Okay? Now let me tell you what the safety is. Because we don't want people making bombs. Because, not enough education. That's why education is important. Now, let's also talk about why we're supposed to spread out and make more grass and trees and forests. Because it works like a filter system. When you're out there on the ocean and you're in a boat, big Navy boat, sailboat, well, there's a lot of open sea, water. So when the water evaporates, you get moisture and salt in the air. Moisture and salt in the air. And the moisture and salt in the air is over top of water. Okay? So you're out there in the ocean and you got water and moisture in the air with a little bit of salt in the air too, but there's a lot of moisture in the air. Clean your lungs out good, man. Take a swim, whatever. Now, for the coastal cities, beach overcrowding and stuff, everybody want to run. For the Midlands and stuff, you gotta have grass and crops and stuff out there, So, well, you got these weather machines, they move the salt air around, because, positive charge particles and stuff in the air, there's more to, heat, than just, sunlight, it's gotta reflect off of stuff. You got salt air, salt particles, like little crystallines in the air, So, wouldn't be so much of that blowing around like that, if we had some grass and crops and trees out there in the desert doing a natural filtration and weather system like it should. So that salt air, if you ever notice, salt air peel the paint right off a car. Well, it's because, it's not over the ocean, salt air, it's got a lot of moisture in it. Well, it's just like God's way of saying, you're the salt of the earth that you're breathing. Breathe, the salt of the earth that you're breathing, Why do they say that? Because, on the coastal lands, when you don't have the proper weather system set up because, you're missing the trees and the grass and stuff like that. What if the salt of the air, the salt has lost its seasoning? What's the salt, lost its seasoning? Well, we could translate that with the Navy Bible, the new interstellar version. And you go, a little bit about chemistry and a little bit about science. And you go, there's salt in the air, okay? Now, the salt in the air that's got moisture over water has a lot of moisture in the air. Now, the salt that is in the air, there's a lot of moisture in the air that's over land, dry land, like, sandy beaches and, dry sands and stuff like that, It sucks the moisture out of the air and you're breathing in more salt than moisture and air, so you get a lot of salt in the lungs, in the body, and and preservatives, and it kind of breaks down on the growth of the cellular growth, creates health problems, you see. So that's why everybody wear masks, kind of filter the salt out a little bit. It's like working in a factory, you're grinding stuff away, there's dust in the air. Well, you're in coastal cities, there's salt in the air. Okay, you lose too many trees and stuff and a bunch of buildings and cities, the warm climates of the south. Well, that's hot, humid, salt air, and the humidity, when it goes over the sandy places and the dry places, then it sucks the moisture out of the air and it leaves the salt. And you can see evidence of that when the salt peels the paint off of the cars, and you think about what it's doing to your lungs. So, I just want to tell you a little bit about Mother Nature, So, when that sets in, you say, maybe we should pay attention to the Navy guys. They know an awful lot about salt and air and water and nuclear physics and stuff, So, maybe not just the space industry, scientists. Maybe United States Navy, the USA Space Alliance might have a little bit of input that might be important, huh? So the next time I send a Navy guy out to the spaceport, they go out to NASA and it says, hey man, I used to work on the submarine. And they just kind of lay him off like it wasn't important. Well, maybe next time they go, man, that guy was a nuclear missile technician. And he came to the Space Center to work at the Space Center. Why in the world would we lay a guy off like that? It was all about that science. And look at this kid. He never even went to school for that stuff. And he's just like, that's easy stuff to us. Probably like it runs in our family, Just saying. Something to think about. So, when the preacher gets up and he goes, hey, I'm on a podium today, and I'm going to preach about the salt. What if the salt has lost its seasoning? Well, the salt without its seasoning is without its H2O, which is hydrogen and 2 parts oxygen. So, if you're breathing in the oxygen, then you're breathing in the hydrogen too, because that's what makes water and it puts moisture in the air. So, if you got hydrogen and water, oxygen, hydrogen, carrying a little bit of salt, and the moisture, which is the H2O, gets out of the air and there's nothing but salt. You're preserving your lungs and there's no more growth. You're preserving your skin and it just starts to wither away, So, now you know why fresh water is so important. And that's why they tell you, if you get stuck out in the ocean, don't drink the salt water. You're already breathing it. See? So, there's a little bit about physics and science. Now, you think about that, you can't really water the crops with salt water, It dry the crops out, man. Salt, all that salt, just kill the crops. So, same things. Use the chemicals to help grow the crops, and the chemicals to help keep the bugs and stuff off eating the crops, because, you start growing new crops and grass in the land where there's nothing, and then the bugs and stuff come over and say, oh my God, there's more stuff for us to eat, so you got to use the chemicals, to keep the stuff off the crops. So, when it waters it, and the water that's being reclaimed goes back into the reservoir to reuse it again. Got to run it through a filter, that way, when it evaporates in the man-made evaporation system for the greenhouses, to grow that stuff and expand, then it doesn't go boom, with spark or something. In basic sense, it's just a little bit of science with some chemistry and stuff. So, you got all these chemists and stuff who do all this other stuff, but, did they know anything about nuclear science? Nuclear science is like photosynthesis, you can synthesize it. If you could see it, you could believe it. So we show you all kind of stuff now. So you've seen it. You should probably start believing it.